Thank you for coming today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred. I will read a statement, and then the victims will each have a statement, then we'll be happy to open it up for questions. We are here today because yesterday there was a new development in the criminal case of Nathaniel Radimak, also known as, quote, the Tesla road rage driver, end quote. In 2023, Mr. Radimak was accused of numerous crimes in California, such as assault, criminal threats, vandalism, and elder abuse. He was permitted by the LA County District Attorney's Office to enter a plea in LA County, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. His victims, some of whom are here with me today, were notified by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, CDCR, that he would be released on August 28, 2024, after serving less than a year of that sentence, because he was given credit for 424 days served while he was awaiting sentencing and 212 days for good behavior. On the form sent to the victims by the CDCR under, quote, inmate proposed community of release, end quote, it stated, quote, unknown, quote. Upon his release, I held a press conference with some of my clients who were victims of Mr. Radimak, who were terrified of him and alleged that the LA County District Attorney's Office never consulted them about the plea deal and never gave them a chance to speak at Radimak's sentencing, a right that should have been afforded them under California law, also known as Marsy's Law. At that prior press conference, I warned Mr. Radimak that even though he was released on parole, a condition of parole is that he must obey all laws, and that if he violated any law and threatened any person or damaged their property or both, his parole could be revoked, and he could then be sentenced to time in prison for the remainder of his original sentence. At that time, I stated to Mr. Radimak publicly, quote, consider yourself warned, end quote. Unfortunately, it appears that Mr. Radimak did not take advantage of what should have been for him a teaching moment. Instead, he relocated to Hawaii. And yesterday, he appeared for an arraignment on the charges of, quote, first-degree unauthorized entry into a motor vehicle and 2 counts of misdemeanor assault for allegedly striking an 18-year-old woman and her 35-year-old mother, end quote. He pled not guilty to the new charges in Hawaii. The judge set a bail of $100,000 on the new charges, but reportedly, even if Mr. Radimak could post it, he would not be released because he would still be held on a, quote, no bail warrant, end quote, as a result of his parole violation in Los Angeles. The arraignment, which took place yesterday in Hawaii, had been delayed for 1 week because while in custody on the new charges, Mr. Radimak had been attacked and beaten by inmates in Hawaii and had to be hospitalized. That was yet another shocking development in this case. All of the recent events in Hawaii could have been avoided if Mr. Radimak had only heeded the public warning that we gave him last year. Instead, Mr. Radimak seems to be a person who has had to learn his lesson, as my father once said, quote, in the College of Hard Knocks, end quote. We will be following this case in Hawaii closely, and my California clients are dedicated to seeing justice done. They never want to see another person experience what they suffered from Mr. Radimak. Their hearts go out to the mother and daughter in Hawaii, whom the Hawaii prosecutor has alleged are the victims of Nathaniel Radimak. When justice is not done, the public is endangered. Mr. Radimak has a right to a fair trial, but there must also be justice for those who can prove that they are victims of Nathaniel Radimak. Next, the victims are going to make a statement, and then I am going to just say a little bit more about what the sentence could be for the crimes alleged in Hawaii if he is convicted. And I'll leave you this to photograph afterwards.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Vivian Romero. I want to begin by expressing my deep gratitude to you.
Thank you.
Attorney Gloria Allred, for all of her unwavering support and your tireless, I don't know how you do it, advocacy. Her commitment to ensuring that all of our voices are heard, both in the media and within our justice system. You're truly invaluable. Thank you. She has stood by us and so many other victims when the criminal justice system failed to protect us from Nathaniel Radimak, also known as the Tesla road rage driver. Despite the severity of his crimes, Mr. Radimak was released on parole after serving less than a year of a 5-year sentence, and is now alleged to have committed 2 counts of third-degree assault. Had he served a sentence of 5 years in California, these new attacks on women might have been prevented. I believe that these incidents were a foreseeable consequence of a system that repeatedly failed to address his pattern of violence and his pattern of behavior. Some repeat offenders, unfortunately, may not be rehabilitated even when given second chances. Under the circumstances, I think that Mr. Radimak poses a serious danger to the public. In closing, I extend my sympathy and my support to those who allege they've been attacked or threatened in both California and Hawaii. I will continue to fight for justice and stand in solidarity with every person who was affected by Mr. Radimak's actions. Thank you.
Vivian. Why don't you want to go next?
Sure.
Why don't you just change seats?
Good morning. My name is Beth Lamprecht. It is sickening that Nathaniel Radimak, after being released from prison early, has appeared to violate his parole by reportedly reoffending in Hawaii, where he allegedly assaulted 2 women. If this is true, it appears that he remains a dangerous threat. And as I stated previously, there was every reason to doubt any chance of reform for this repeat offender. His return to violence underscores that he has not been willing to control his actions. If it is proven that he attacked 2 women with a baby in the back seat, then I believe that anyone could be his next victim.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Gracia Palma.
A little louder.
Hello everyone, my name is Gracia Palma. I was infuriated when I heard the news that Nathaniel Radimak, who was on parole for crimes he committed against women in Los Angeles, was arrested for allegedly assaulting 2 more women in Hawaii. This is exactly what we feared. I did not believe that a short time behind bars for the crimes he committed in Los Angeles County was enough. This latest failure highlights how broken and ineffective the system truly is. It's disheartening and enraging to see it fall short yet again. Our prayers go out to these women whom the prosecutor alleges were victims of Mr. Radimak. I hope that justice will be done in the new criminal case. May they find justice they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You can stay there. We'll be happy to take some questions, but meanwhile, if you have any, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, let me just say a couple things. The charge, he's pled not guilty to the charges. The first charge is unauthorized entry into motor vehicle, first-degree severity. Felony, thank you, felony, Class C. And he's pled not guilty to that. That is a felony if he is convicted of it. The other 2 are misdemeanors, assault in the 3rd degree. A misdemeanor is a count that if he were to be convicted of it, could carry a sentence of a year or less in jail. Of course, a felony by definition is, if convicted, the person convicted of it could be sentenced to more than 1 year. So for the felony, it could be a maximum of 5 years. And then the last one, of course, is also assault in the third degree, a misdemeanor. So not guilty to all three of them. In reference to the bail issue, if he is convicted, we're looking forward to seeing him back here in LA County. Are there any other questions?
Gloria, how does this speak to the idea of a reassessment of how bail is granted and about how people are actually held in custody when they commit or are accused of committing this kind of a serious offense?
What does
it speak to? Maybe somebody in the legislature said, we need to rethink this. That somebody sits still, you don't just postpone and walk.
Okay, so the question has to do with, is there an issue with the sentencing? And of course I would agree with, I think, if I may, the underlying presumption that there is a big issue with sentencing. First of all, as I said, it began with victims in California who alleged they were never consulted. This is the former district attorney, Mr. Garcon, office, which failed to let them know that a plea was being considered, which they have a right to know and a right to express their feelings on. And then in addition, when it came time for the sentencing, they had a right to give their victim impact statements, but they alleged they were never notified of that date, and therefore, in violation of Marcy's law, never could give, nor did they give, a victim impact statement. Further, when you get to the fact that they were notified, or some of them were, by the parole board, or essentially the correctional institution that I mentioned, what they received said unknown where he was going. And yet he is on supervised parole. How could they supervise if where he was going was unknown, as indicated in the notice that they received, which we had a copy of? And then, again, trying to explain to the public why he was sentenced to 5 years. Allegedly, there were 8 victims. I'm not sure if there were charges for all of them. But anyway, he was sentenced to 5 years, and then he is released after serving less than a year. Then he goes to Hawaii, and then all of this happens that we have described. Yes, absolutely failure of the system. I don't know that anyone knew that he was in Hawaii. Some of them may have known, but they should have formally been notified. And then now this. What I thought you were going to ask me, but I'll volunteer it since you didn't, is about the inmates beating him up in custody. I don't know if they knew the history of Mr. Radimak, which, by the way, to the best of my knowledge, is not limited to what we described today, but everyone can search for themselves as to any prior criminal history. But in any event, that is what is reported from Hawaii, that he was beaten up, and then we did see on video from Hawaii, from some of the news stations there, his being wheeled into court in a wheelchair with his face bruised, and indicating that it was not self-harm. It was he was harmed by someone else, or maybe more than someone else. We don't know anything more about that, except that allegedly it was by the inmates. I can have people here, or the victims talk about how they feel about it, but from my personal point of view, I don't know why Mr. Radimak attacked or threatened, or both, some of the victims here. Maybe, again, speculating, he thought that they said something that he didn't like or did something he didn't like. That is not justification to engage in, maybe in his head, some kind of vigilante justice by striking them, threatening them, destroying any of their property, or some or all of the above. Likewise, for the inmates, I don't know what message, if any, they were trying to send, but if that was a measure of vigilante justice, I personally, as a lawyer, cannot say that vigilante justice should be inflicted even if the actual justice system has failed the victims. Now, people may feel differently, but that's my statement as a lawyer. Does anyone want to say anything about that or not, or add anything they haven't had a chance to say?
Was he traveling in Hawaii or he moved to Hawaii?
I don't know how it is that he went to Hawaii, but that's a good question. I don't know.
Is there any condition for parole does not allow him to move outside of California? Because most parole will have that condition, right?
Yeah, I don't know is the answer, so I won't guess. But the state of Hawaii, the law enforcement system, would honor an extradition request from the state of California to extradite, should such a request be made, and to bring him back to Los Angeles County if, as, and when he first is convicted, if he is, in Hawaii, and then serves his sentence there. So that's,
But still,
but you have a good question.
still there will be a parole violation in California for him. Right?
It's a parole, the parole violation is obey all laws, which is a standard parole condition for any inmate anywhere who does obtain the privilege, as opposed to the right, the privilege of being on parole. So again, it would be that they would have to make a finding that he had violated his parole, which is likely to be on the basis of obey all laws, and he didn't, if he's convicted, and that would be, or should be, sufficient to have him returned to California to then serve the rest of his sentence.
In your gut opinion, you think that he's convicted in Hawaii, it's one thing, but the minute he hits the door at the end of his sentence in Hawaii, you're going to have people waiting for him to say, hi, you've got an appointment with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. You got to fill out the remainder of 5 years. Is that in theory what you'd like to see happen the minute he would get out of whatever time he's serving in Hawaii?
I'd like to see him, if he is convicted in Hawaii, be sentenced to the maximum sentence that is possible under the law for which he was convicted there. I would like to see him then serve his full term that could be imposed and in Hawaii, and then brought back to serve a further term if it is found, which it will be, if he didn't obey all laws and he's convicted in Hawaii, serve the remainder of his California sentence here in California.
You still got at least 4 years you probably have to serve.
Maybe
more.
Maybe 4 years. I don't know.
What was the reason given for his early release?
That's cool.
The only reason that we have been given by the CDC that I described earlier was that he was given credit, some credit for time served. That means while he's in custody awaiting sentencing, he gets credit for that time as part of his sentence. And then he gets credit for what's called, quote, good time, end quote. I don't know. Maybe he didn't attack anybody and got good time. I don't know what he got good time for in LA. Doesn't look like he had a good time in Hawaii, in custody. I couldn't help myself. But anyway, okay. Are there Are there any other questions? I wouldn't wish a beating on anyone, even Mr. Radimak, but I wonder if that's taught him anything. Don't know. I said most of his victims have been women. You were with your 90-year-old mother was in the car with you?
Yeah, she was.
Were you by yourself
Yes.
in the car?
Yes.
In the car. And
Alone.
she was alone. Terrifying. All right, so thank you very much for coming. As they say, you have a copy of this. You want to stand up and hold this? This is what he's charged with in Hawaii, and it's from the court's webpage. If you want to stand up. You want to stand up? Okay, here we go. Here, there you go.
All of us?
We're on.
You can stand up. All right. Now, I don't know whether at any point Hawaii officials decide to offer him a plea to anything. I don't know. But we're going to be following this closely and letting everyone know here what we determine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.